Andrew Jackson, who was he? What did he do? Why did he do it? Why was he good? Why was he bad? We're going to talk about everything. First, he did not have an easy life, which was pretty novel at the time. All of the presidents so far, super privileged like crazy. Him, though, his mom died. His brothers died. They were killed by British people. Him, kidnapped by British people. Tortured by British people. He hated British people. And he was also poor. So basically, stuff was pretty bad for not me, I'm fine. Stuff was bad for Andrew when he was a wee tot, when he was a little one. But he grew up to be the first man that was elected through direct appeal of the voters rather than from an organized party elite. However, despite the fact that he was entered as president as part of a faction and didn't really have an association with the parties, when he left, when he went out, not only was he heavily associated with the Democratic Party, but he was famous for reinstating the Democratic Party, kind of bringing back the two-party system. That was a good thing he did. One bad thing he did was that he displaced a lot of Native people. He placed the Native Removal Act in 1828, which basically took all of the Native people that were living in the States and put them into uncolonized Western territory, even though that didn't really work because they were obviously going to colonize that parts of the West eventually. But out of the states that were there currently, got the natives out. So got the job done, but was not a good job.
Okay, so during the War of 1812, the British really wanted to take over New Orleans and Louisiana so they could separate that from like the rest of the United States. And so in January of 1815, the British troops wanted to go into Louisiana to obviously, try and take over New Orleans. And they had like thousands of troops. But Andrew Jackson, he was called in to try and, organize a militia. And so he called martial law on the entire city. And he was able to create an army of a couple thousand men to go and fight the British. And he was able to push back the British out of Louisiana when only losing about 100 men. So that's pretty much no one died. But the British, they lost a few thousand men, which is just incredible. So he was regarded as a national hero, and that's probably one of the biggest successes that he's ever had. And plus, that also helped the entire American army during the War of 1812 as well.
The nullification crisis in U.S. history was a confirmation between the state of South Carolina and the federal government in 1832 to 1833 over the former's attempt to declare null and void within the state the federal tariffs of 1828 and 1932. The resolution of the nullification crisis in favor of the federal government helped to undermine the nullification doctrine, the constitutional theory that upheld the right of states to nullify federal acts within their boundaries. So the federal crisis was the first time that friction between state and federal authority began to create enough tension that almost led to a civil war. Andrew Jackson's leadership in this crisis forestalled succession by nearly 30 years. He opposed any measure that would potentially break up the Union. In July 1832, in an effort to compromise, he signed a new tariff bill that lowered most important tariffs duties to their 1816 levels. Andrew Jackson regarded the South Carolina Ordinance of Nullification as a clear threat to the federal union and to the national authority. He reacted by submitting to Congress a force bill authorizing the use of federal troops in South Carolina if necessary to collect tariff duties. The nullification crisis made President Jackson a hero to nationalists, but Southerners were made more conscious of their minor authority and more aware of their vulnerability to a Northern majority as long as they remained in the Union.
Hi. He killed the National Bank by removing all federal funds and placing them in the pet banks. This, combined with rampant speculation in Western lands, ended up destabilizing the banking system, so much so that in 1836 Jackson ordered that Western land could only be paid for in gold or silver. Jackson's order met with heavy criticism from members of his administration. Most of the government's money had been moved out of the bank by late 1833. This was a negative.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.